People gathered and were conversing with each other when they heard a voice calling out to them. An orange cat asked them if they wanted to check out the items it brought, claiming they were very good. The people were fascinated by the cat merchant and asked what it was selling. They were disappointed to learn that the cat was only selling cherry tomatoes, expecting a legendary weapon or a mysterious potion from a cat merchant. With a menacing look, the cat asked them to take another look at the cherry tomato, and they would notice the difference between its product and a normal cherry tomato. After opening the status window of the cherry tomato, others were still not impressed by the buff it provided, as it only increased MP by 0.1 for 10 minutes. However, a woman noticed another effect of the cherry tomato. Consuming it would cause them to lose 10 grams of fat. The cat felt proud of the tomato it was selling and offered it for only 0.5 tower coins per tomato. The cat did not expect to be bombarded with customers right away, throwing their money at it. A man asked where the cat got the tomato and who made it. The cat only responded that the information was a secret. In a different location, the protagonist was picking cherry tomatoes with the assistance of rabbits wearing different accessories. The protagonist asked the rabbits to stop and take a rest, feeling that they had already picked enough tomatoes. The protagonist poured a strange liquid into a canister and asked the bee beside them for more honey. After drinking the vitality drink along with the rabbits, the protagonist received an additional quest: to distribute the honey water to the tower manager. Above them, the cat merchant appeared and called out the protagonist's name, Sejun. Both were happy to see each other. The cat informed Sejun that the tomatoes were sold out and it had earned tons of tower coin. Sejun was overjoyed and appointed the cat as the CEO for an hour. Sejun couldn't hide his ambition. He wanted his name to spread throughout. The cat immediately asked the black rabbit to refill the supplies as it wanted to earn more money and leave as soon as possible. Sejun forgot to write down the date because he was so busy farming. It had been 150 days since Sejun somehow ended up in the tower and got lost. Sejun's story is about how he survived being lost in the tower. 10 years ago on a busy day, a 99-floored black tower suddenly appeared in the middle of Gangnam. But it wasn't just Gangnam. A total of 100 towers showed up at the same time in cities of different countries, including Korea. Each country investigated the tower that appeared, but the only thing they found out was that the tower was 990 meters high and made of incredibly strong material that couldn't be penetrated even by nuclear bombs. One day, people started to come out of the tower through the walls. They were asked how they got inside the tower, but all of them had the same response. They were sucked into a black hole one day and woke up on the first floor of the tower. All 100 towers were connected, and when someone entered the tower, they would awaken on the first floor and have to choose a role, either a magician or a warrior. A press conference was held informing the nation that monsters had started to appear on the second floor. Every time a floor was cleared, different rewards would be received. One of the most likely rewards to be received was a ticket, an item needed by ordinary people to enter the tower, but only the awakened could climb higher. A reporter asked if anyone would go inside the tower with so many monsters, and why the tower had appeared. The response they provided was opening a small chest containing a substantial amount of gold, and informing everyone that by going up the tower, they would surely receive money. It was announced on the news that the price of Black Tower tickets would be increased from 150 million to 200 million won, and hundreds of people were waiting to buy the ticket before the price hike. Listening to the news, the old lady was not happy, as people were risking their lives just to earn money, and now they were asking for 200 million won for the ticket. The young man, who happened to be Park Sejun, could only agree with the old lady's view and immediately left after paying for his groceries. After calculating all of his money, Sejun realized he had saved around 12 million won at most. Unfortunately for him, the ticket prices kept increasing. Sejun could only wonder when he would be able to purchase a ticket, or if he would be able to purchase one at all. As Sejun was about to lose hope, he immediately cheered himself up and thought about the vegetables he had just bought at a low price. He planned to plant them since the price of vegetables had also increased. He also remembered his favorite idol in a commercial for growing vegetables, and planned to marry her once he was able to obtain a ticket and save a lot of money. Sejun didn't notice the black hole appearing behind him, as he was still trying to cheer himself up. When he finally noticed the black hole, he remembered the vanishing phenomenon that sucked the first generation of the awakened. He was so delighted by the situation that the black hole had started to shrink. Sejun panicked, thinking he might miss the opportunity. He leaped towards the black hole and went inside the tower. He landed face first and expected to be placed in the first floor plaza, but to his surprise, he found himself trapped inside a cavern. In a tower near the cavern, a mysterious being was outraged when a change was detected in the tower. The being planned to find the cause as the tower's manager. There were divergent opinions about the nature of the Black Tower among the masses. Some considered the training grounds on the first floor to be of utmost importance, recognizing the significance of strength for survival within the tower. However, the information commonly circulated contradicted Sejun's personal experience. After tirelessly searching for an exit from the cave, Sejun appeared gaunt and exhausted. Believing he was on the first floor, he sought out the training grounds and stores, but to no avail. Sejun's screams went unheard within the confines of the cave, leading others to assume he was lost. In the midst of his despair, Sejun could only manage to laugh at his dire situation. Startled by a beeping sound, he realized a day had already elapsed since he became trapped in the cave. Additionally, he noticed the absence of a network signal, though the alarm remained accurate. Feeling hunger gnawing at him, Sejun contemplated how to ration his food supply. Even after consuming an apple, he still felt unsatisfied and continued eating. To his surprise, the raw vegetable offered a taste that surpassed his expectations. Until then, Sejun had always cooked vegetables, but now he discovered the acceptability of consuming them raw. Following a brief choking incident, Sejun swiftly drank from the water bottle and found himself content and grateful for the nourishment. Contemplating how long he would be confined to the cave, Sejun devised a survival plan determined not to succumb and wither away. As his spirits began to wane, Sejun lifted his mood and reminded himself that the tower was his dream, and he shouldn't succumb so easily. It was then that he noticed the remaining apple he had consumed still attached to its seed. Sejun proceeded to bury the apple and devised a plan to utilize the onion leaves as sustenance, planting the root alongside the apple. He also cultivated 3 tomatoes and 2 sweet potatoes, reserving the rest as his food supply. He resolved to do everything within his power to survive and patiently await the growth of his crops. Surveying his work, Sejun was caught off guard by a resounding noise. His initial thought was that it might be a monster, but he recalled that monsters did not exist on the first floor. Upon gazing at the sky, he beheld a blue moon, followed by another deafening sound that tested his endurance. Just before losing consciousness, Sejun caught a glimpse of a majestic black dragon and found its presence to be beautiful. Unbeknownst to Sejun, the vegetables he had planted possessed a mystical essence. When he regained consciousness, he was astonished to find that he had slumbered for 2 days, and the vegetables had grown to an enormous size. Sejun even felt as if he were leaning against a tree, uncertain whether the green onions could have grown so rapidly in just 2 days. Sejun recollected a documentary he had watched about plants adapting their shape to the environment. He was convinced that some unknown power had influenced the growth of the green onion he had planted. While Sejun anticipated substantial growth in the other plants as well, upon inspection, he discovered only small sprouts, not as substantial as the green onion. Sejun speculated that the green onion might be obstructing sunlight for the other plants. Trimming off the leaves but leaving the root intact, Sejun pondered the taste of the colossal vegetable and took a bite. He was taken aback by its spiciness, surpassing the original flavor, yet curiously, it didn't cause any discomfort in his stomach. Sejun resolved to save the spicy food for times when he craved such a sensation. After harvesting the crops, Sejun rested and savored his daily meal. Within the tower, the sun never set, but occasionally it would be eclipsed by the moon on each floor. This celestial phenomenon was referred to as the blue moon. He was aware that the blue moon only occurred on the 10th floor and had previously believed he was on the 1st floor. Furthermore, he firmly believed that the dragon he had glimpsed was real and not a mere illusion. A decade ago, when the tower first materialized, the Phoenix Guild, one of the major guilds, accomplished the remarkable feat of clearing the 37th floor. Due to the competition with other guilds, information regarding floors above the 30th was classified. However, plenty of information about floors below the 30th could be found on YouTube. Skeleton soldiers occupied the 2nd to 10th floors, goblins roamed the 11th to 20th floors, and orcs dwelled on the 21st to 30th floors. Rumors spoke of spider monsters inhabiting the 31st floor. Dragons were never mentioned anywhere in the discourse. Sejun had never come across any mention of dragon-like creatures resembling lizards. He had no inkling of which floor he had ended up on, assuming it to be a floor unexplored even by the most skilled hunters. While gazing at the sky, a droplet of liquid landed on Sejun's face, and he assumed it was rain. As he looked up, he discerned movement and wondered if it was a monster. However, upon closer inspection, he realized it was a rabbit, though unsure whether it was a creature or a monster. Sejun attempted to capture the rabbit as it leaped into the cave. To his surprise, the rabbit landed gracefully and approached the vegetables. It seemed as if the rabbit was indicating its hunger and desire to consume the green onion. Having provided some of the green onion to the rabbit, Sejun noticed that the portion he had cut off had already regrown its leaves. Sejun estimated he would need to trim the green onion leaves twice a day, but to his astonishment, the rabbit responded eagerly and appeared to be attempting to communicate with him. The rabbit summoned 2 additional rabbits, and Sejun correctly deduced that the 2 were a married couple. In Sejun's diary chronicling his experiences of being lost in the tower, a couple of rabbits joined him within the cave. The leaves of the green onion had started growing again. and now the task of harvesting and watering the plants was assigned to the rabbit couple for the time being. Sejun realized that the two rabbits made a great team but was still unsure of how the situation had started. Moments before, Sejun was surprised to learn that the rabbit couple wished to live in the cave. Seeing how cute the rabbits were, Sejun could not decline their request. However, Sejun informed them that staying in the cave would not be free. If the rabbit couple helped Sejun with his farm, there was a chance they could live inside the cave with him. But before Sejun could finish giving out instructions, the rabbit couple was so elated that they instantly hugged Sejun. Sejun couldn't resist the rabbits' cuteness, especially with their soft fur. After what had happened, Sejun felt as though he was being controlled by the couple's adorableness. He noticed the tools that the rabbit couple used and became curious if those were their belongings. The husband rabbit was carrying a spray bottle that seemed to have an unlimited water supply. Sejun still wasn't sure if the wife rabbit had a magical pocket, but she kept bringing out the tools needed for farming. Sejun felt a pang of jealousy and wished he had such wonderful equipment. The rabbit couple called out to Sejun when they finished harvesting and watering the other plants. Sejun observed and critiqued their work. When he saw the changes in the cherry tomatoes and the way they tended to the green onions, Sejun informed them that they had done well and could live in the cave with him. The rabbit couple, who had looked worried before, were now overjoyed with their hard work. The wife rabbit informed the husband rabbit of something, and they immediately rushed to a spot inside the cave. Their actions stirred curiosity in Sejun. After the husband rabbit dug a hole and the wife rabbit placed an ornament in front of their door, Sejun was amazed at how quickly the husband rabbit had made a house and praised him for it. After building the house, the wife rabbit grabbed the husband rabbit and hinted that they should go inside their new home and mate. The request made the husband rabbit scared, and he was dragged inside their home by the wife rabbit. Sejun could only compliment how hardworking the husband rabbit was, and also feel envious of him. He thought that being alone in the cave would be boring, but thanks to the rabbits, he now had help with his farming and got to witness incredibly cute things. While lying on the dried green onion leaves, smoke started to appear from Sejun's back. He immediately got up as it burned him. After rolling around in the dirt to relieve the pain, he became curious about what had burned his back, and noticed the reflection of the sun being focused by the water bottle, causing an ember to appear on the dried green onions. After processing his thoughts, Sejun came up with an idea. The environment in the Black Tower was harsh, but Sejun didn't lose hope because he had dried green onions and a plastic bottle of water. Sejun planned to use the transparent bottle as a converging lens to start a fire, just like in episode 1 of Surviving in the Wild, a series on YouTube. He hoped that by watching the series and following their actions, he would achieve the same results. Sejun was disappointed because he couldn't start a fire using the plastic bottle method. He noticed that it only produced smoke but didn't ignite. His wonderful idea was immediately shattered, and he didn't know why it wasn't working. Sejun was sure that he remembered the correct methods, but was curious about why he couldn't generate a flame. While staring at the dried green onions, he noticed an ember in the middle of them. The rabbit couple had finished their lovemaking session, and the husband rabbit noticed that Sejun was kneeling in front of the dried green onions. Sejun kept blowing on the dried green onions where he saw the ember. When the rabbit couple approached him, he was overjoyed to see them again and instructed them to blow some air on the leaves. Sejun held the plastic bottle while the rabbit couple blew on the dried green onion leaves. With their combined efforts, they were able to ignite a fire with the dried green onion leaves. Sejun was elated to see that his method worked and immediately looked at the green onions he had planted. He threw the green onions onto the fire and cooked them. After a few minutes of cooking, Sejun peeled off the burnt areas and ate the rest. His reaction was priceless. He tasted a sweetness resembling sugar rushing through his mind. He compared the sensation in his mouth to that of a wild green horse running in a wide field, abundant with flavor. Sejun was so satisfied with the food that he cooked more. The rabbit couple was curious about what Sejun was doing and tried to replicate his cooking. After cooking the green onions, the rabbit couple tasted the food and immediately fell in love with it. Sejun then told them they could eat more of the green onions and help themselves. The trio was overjoyed with their newfound discovery. Sejun added more information to his diary, Sejun's diary of getting lost. He had finally filled his stomach with warm food and went to sleep right away. Sejun woke up and washed his face, gazing at his farm. He had finished harvesting the green onions and watering the cherry tomatoes and sweet potatoes with the help of the rabbits. Sejun felt a sense of satisfaction after seeing the fruits of his labor. Living alongside the rabbit couple had brought about a plethora of transformations in Sejun's existence. Ever since they acquired the skill of igniting a fire, they ingeniously utilized the green onions to erect a series of torches strategically positioned throughout the cave. While observing the pond, Sejun noticed a small ripple and was taken aback when a fish lunged towards the torch. Swiftly dodging, Sejun managed to avoid the fish, which landed on the ground. It was the first time he had seen a fish inside the pond, and he wondered if the torch had attracted it. This unexpected event led to the acquisition of a fish in the cave. Sejun wrapped the fish in dried green onions and placed it near the fire to cook. After expressing his gratitude, he took a bite and found the taste satisfying. The rabbit couple grew envious and expressed their desire to eat some fish as well. Sejun was initially surprised to learn that the rabbits also ate meat, but then he realized that the rabbit couple were also considered monsters. A couple of days later, the blue moon appeared once again. Sejun discovered that on his floor, the blue moon phenomenon occurred every 30 days. Initially, Sejun used his laptop and power bank to charge his phone and keep track of the date, but eventually, those resources reached their limit. Unable to use his phone any longer, Sejun started carving the days on the wall to keep a record of the date. According to his calculations, it had been 61 days since he had become trapped inside the cave. Luckily, the rabbits maintained a strict sleeping schedule, going to bed at 7 in the evening and waking up at 5 in the morning. By following their routine, Sejun avoided any mistakes in counting the days due to the never-setting sun. After a few days, something wonderful happened. When Sejun greeted the husband rabbit in the morning, he was taken aback as a swarm of baby rabbits emerged from behind him. The couple rabbits had given birth to these adorable little ones. The baby rabbits immediately ran towards Sejun, filling him with joy, and he playfully asked if they had missed their uncle Sejun. He was delighted to be an uncle. Sejun noticed that the rabbit couple didn't seem to sleep at all and must have been finding it challenging to care for their young ones. Sejun suggested that he could take care of the baby rabbits, allowing the rabbit couple to take a break while having their breakfast. The couple agreed, and Sejun took the baby rabbits to explore the flowers blooming on the cherry tomatoes. Watching the baby rabbits play around his farm brought Sejun immense happiness. He noticed that the flowers had blossomed and turned the area into a beautiful flower garden. For the plants to bear fruit, pollination was necessary, so Sejun manually pollinated them using a stick. Sejun's back ached from spending the entire day pollinating the flowers tirelessly. He couldn't help but wish for a bee to visit his garden, but he knew it would be too greedy to ask for such a thing. Suddenly, Sejun noticed one of the baby rabbits putting its face inside a flower. The baby rabbit sneezed forcefully after inhaling the pollen, which made Sejun burst into laughter. He reminded the baby rabbit not to breathe in the pollen. While observing the flowers, Sejun spotted a green fruit. After all the hard work, they had finally produced some fruit. Both Sejun and the baby rabbit felt elated and danced joyfully on the farm. The day before the blue moon, Sejun extinguished the fire, leaving behind a tiny ember that he covered with rocks. With his preparations complete, Sejun was satisfied with the camouflage and warmth provided by the dried green onion leaves. As he looked at the sky, Sejun realized that it was almost time and bid farewell to the rabbit couple, assuring them that the blue moon was a piece of cake now. As the blue moon arrived, Sejun felt utterly exhausted. Staring at his farm, he felt tired and wondered when the phenomenon would end. Taking precautions, Sejun hid anything that emitted a scent and waited in a corner for the blue moon to pass. However, since he didn't know how many hours had gone by, every minute felt like an hour. He trembled upon hearing distant cries. Sejun hoped that the blue moon would end without any mishaps. Suddenly, he heard a new unfamiliar sound. It was the first time he had heard such a noise. A massive paw tore through the ground, creating a hole where Sejun and the rabbits were trapped. Under the blue moon, a bear monster stood before the hole. Sejun couldn't believe his eyes and pressed himself against the wall. Their eyes met, and all Sejun could do was curse his luck. In his mind, he knew he hadn't been discovered yet and needed to find a better hiding place before the bear noticed him. Trembling, Sejun slowly reached for his bag, but the movement caused all the cherry tomatoes and bottled water to spill out. Sejun was certain that the noise had attracted attention. As he stared at the fallen tomatoes, he glanced at the enormous bear, horrified to see its face peering into the hole. Sejun was taken aback and let out a scream, prompting the bear to respond with a roar. Sejun had lost consciousness during the occurrence of the blue moon. He found himself surrounded by baby rabbits and a rabbit couple. One of the baby rabbits was tugging at his mouth, and coincidentally, he dreamt of his mother waking him up. The husband rabbit had reached his limit and slapped Sejun. Startled, Sejun woke up in a panic, confused about what had transpired during the blue moon. The husband rabbit pointed out that the sky had cleared again, indicating that the blue moon had already passed. Realizing that he had blacked out, Sejun's curiosity about the events heightened, and he felt pain throughout his body. Gradually, he recollected the occurrences during the blue moon. Sejun remembered that a gigantic monster had fixed its gaze upon him and let out an earth-shattering roar. Recalling those events sent shivers down Sejun's spine, as he had narrowly escaped being killed by the colossal creature. The wife rabbit removed the rocks that covered a small fire, draped Sejun in a blanket made of green onions, and positioned the fire close to him to ward off the cold. With a cooked fish in hand, the wife rabbit brought immense joy to Sejun. He worried that the monster might have detected their location, and was uncertain whether it had sensed the presence of another monster, or simply given up due to the small size of the cave's entrance. However, there was no guarantee that a similar incident wouldn't occur during the next blue moon. Sejun humbly recognized the fortunate turn of events that had saved his life. However, deep within, he harbored doubts about his ability to endure a similar trial in the future. Frustration welled up within him as he pondered the tremendous effort he had exerted to ensure his survival. Nevertheless, he understood that in the present moment, nourishment was essential for him to persist and withstand the challenges that lay ahead. The husband rabbit summoned Sejun, piquing his curiosity about the reason behind the call. At his farm, Sejun was taken aback to see that the cherry tomatoes had already grown as large as golf balls. One particular tomato caught his attention with its exquisite appearance, but he couldn't help but wonder why it was blue. Suspecting that the fruit might be ripe, a notification appeared before him, congratulating him on successfully completing a quest to harvest a fruit infused with the energy of the blue moon. Astonished by the appearance of a message window, Sejun received further notifications informing him that his remarkable achievement had attracted the attention of the tower manager. Sejun acquired knowledge of the tower manager's vigilant scrutiny, which revealed a sense of dissatisfaction on the manager's part. The tower manager had detected Sejun's presence as an uninvited guest, prompting a desire to conceal its own misjudgment. Sejun was taken aback by the startling revelation that he was being considered a mere error within the tower's grand scheme. Gradually, his initial surprise transformed into a growing fury as he comprehended the immense struggle he had endured for a grueling 61 days deep within the confines of the cave, only to be informed that his very existence within the tower was deemed nothing but a mistake. If he was truly considered a mistake, Sejun wished for the tower manager to send him home. However, the tower manager responded by suggesting it was contemplating killing Sejun to eliminate any evidence. Sejun's anger flared as he realized that instead of receiving a reward for unlocking an achievement, he was being marked for death. The tower manager paused for a moment before responding to Sejun's outburst, causing Sejun to ponder whether his own behavior had been too impolite. Caught off guard, Sejun was taken aback when the tower manager abruptly awakened him. Upon learning that he was being awakened, Sejun's excitement grew, anticipating what his role in the tower would be. As someone who considered himself intelligent, he assumed he would become a wizard. Sejun didn't know how to react when he discovered that he had been assigned the role of a rank F tower farmer. Despite his confusion, he understood that his job would grant him immunity to illness, bring him closer to nature, and provide experience points for harvesting crops. Baffled by his assignment as a farmer, given that he only knew of the options of becoming a swordsman or a wizard, Sejun opened his status window, shocked to find that his received talent was just ordinary. Sejun imagined himself on a late-night talk show introduced as someone who had successfully conquered the tower despite possessing an ordinary talent. When asked about his occupation, Sejun confidently declared himself as the tower farmer. Devastated and disappointed by the realization that he had been assigned the role of a tower farmer, Sejun contemplated discarding the blue cherry tomato. However, upon witnessing the fear displayed by the rabbit family, he hesitated. Looking around at his surroundings, he realized how hard he had worked to cultivate the blue cherry tomato, and didn't want his efforts to go to waste. Sejun ultimately accepted his fate and vowed to continue farming, much to the delight of the rabbit family. Sejun was taken aback when a message box appeared above the blue cherry tomato, revealing that it was a magical cherry tomato imbued with the energy of the blue moon. Consuming the tomato would permanently increase the user's MP by 0.05. Surprised to learn that the cherry tomato was actually an item, Sejun, despite the negligible increase, felt content and congratulated himself for growing such a remarkable specimen as the magical cherry tomato. As the tower manager observed the farm through an orb, it became irate. While celebrating their new crop, Sejun noticed another message box, triggering a new quest that instructed him to present the fruit containing the energy of the blue moon to the tower manager. The reward for completing the quest would be a job-related skill, but refusing it would result in Sejun's death. Faced with the consequences of refusal, Sejun considered it a joke but couldn't help feeling frightened. Sejun was surprised to see the details of the quest. He knew he was being blackmailed to give the blue cherry tomato to the tower manager, and had disguised it as a quest. In a fit of rage, Sejun said out loud that the tower manager didn't need to threaten him and should just ask for it. While talking to himself, Sejun was annoyed at how the tower manager viewed human life, and how easily the manager could take a life by refusing a quest. After contemplating for some time, Sejun gave up and offered the blue cherry tomato, asking to spare his life since he didn't want to die either. After obtaining the blue cherry tomato, Sejun received the quest reward. He had forgotten about the rewards because he was so fixated on the refusal option. The reward he received was a job-related skill, which made him very happy. He thanked the tower manager for its generosity. When he opened the reward, Sejun obtained the skill Sowing. He felt disappointed by the skill he received and remembered that his job was a tower farmer, so it made sense for him to receive the sowing skill. Sejun now focused more on his farming. While trying to fish from the pond, he was able to catch a piranha, from which he obtained 2 experience points. Sejun managed to fish out 5 piranhas and gained 10 experience points. After Sejun woke up, he obtained experience points. He caught several piranhas for a few days to survive and somehow reached level 2. He wanted to catch more of them, but Sejun knew that killing a living thing without any reason was not a good idea. Although piranhas provided a good supply of protein, Sejun knew that drying out their numbers would not help him in the future. After cooking the piranhas he caught, he called out to all the rabbits so they could share the meal. The baby rabbits were eating so fast that Sejun told them to take their time. As the baby rabbits grew a little, they started eating more food. Sejun reminded them to leave some for their mom and dad. Sejun also managed to gather information about the rabbits. While giving the couple rabbit their share of the meal, Sejun noticed their identity: Farmer White Rabbit. This was a type of monster that Sejun had never heard of outside the tower. Based on their name alone, Sejun believed that the white rabbit species specialized in farming rather than fighting, which would explain why they weren't well known. Sejun didn't know what had happened, but he assumed that the white rabbits had lost their farm, roamed around, and somehow ended up finding the cave he was in. He was curious if the white rabbits still had a hometown they could return to. Sejun wished they could communicate with each other since he couldn't understand what a rabbit said. After finishing their meals, Sejun told everyone that they should head to the farm now because they had an important day ahead of them. After hearing Sejun, the white rabbits felt motivated to work. Sejun and all the white rabbits were surprised to see that the cherry tomatoes were already ripe. Sejun shed a tear because they had worked so hard to grow the tomatoes, and the ones they obtained after the blue moon didn't count. As he was about to harvest the cherry tomato, everyone was filled with tension. But after Sejun harvested his first cherry tomato, he was so happy because it had ripened so well. He was surprised to receive experience points after harvesting the cherry tomato. Sejun was even more surprised to find out that the cherry tomato they harvested was similar to the magical cherry tomato before, and they also received 10 experience points just by harvesting it. The effects only lasted for about 10 minutes, but if they ate 10 magical cherry tomatoes at the same time, they could increase their MP by 1 point. Sejun was curious if the other tomatoes had the same effects. He started harvesting the other cherry tomatoes but accidentally picked the wrong one. After picking the wrong tomato, Sejun noticed that the experience points he received were lower than last time, and the job experience points didn't increase at all. He also noticed that the wrong tomato he picked was not an item but just an ordinary tomato. Sejun deduced that he needed to harvest a fully ripe cherry tomato to get it as an item. Sejun realized that his work had just gotten harder. Sejun kept on harvesting the magical cherry tomatoes and eventually reached level 4, receiving another bonus stat. Thinking that what he had harvested was enough, Sejun wanted to have a taste of it, but noticed that the white rabbits also wanted to have a piece of the cherry tomato since they had also helped out. Sejun apologized and shared the food with everyone. Sejun wanted to celebrate the successful harvest of the magical cherry tomato with everyone. After taking a bite of the tomato, Sejun instantly imagined that he was lying in the grass with the white rabbits, staring at the fireworks in the starry night sky. With the fresh scent of grass and the sweet and sour taste melting with the scent, by eating the magical cherry tomato, he was able to compare the sensation with summer and its fireworks. Seeing Sejun's tearful reaction, the white rabbits were confused and looked at each other. Everyone started to store the harvested cherry tomatoes and covered them with dried green onion leaves. Sejun was delighted to see that the baby rabbits were already big enough to help their mom and dad. Feeling tired, Sejun went to sleep so he could start another great day soon. After complimenting himself, Sejun instantly fell asleep. In the middle of his sleep, Sejun received a quest. He ignored it at first, but the tower manager was so insistent that Sejun accepted. Annoyed at the tower manager, Sejun gave the harvested tomato and received another reward. Sejun wanted a more useful reward for the new quest since the last one he received was not useful to him. He managed to contain his anger after looking at the new skill he received: Harvest. Thinking about why he needed a harvesting skill, Sejun was surprised the next day to find that the skill was very useful. He no longer needed to wait for the magical cherry tomatoes to ripen. Once he harvested the tomatoes, all of them turned into magical cherry tomatoes and ripened. He received another quest, and although he expected it, since the last quest had helped Sejun more, he complied with the request. But with every quest he received, it got greedier without an end in sight. After receiving another quest, asking for 500 cherry tomatoes with no reward, Sejun had enough and blatantly declined the request. The tower manager was caught off guard by the sudden refusal. Sejun's diary of getting lost in a tower where he rebelled against the tower manager for the first time. Sejun became furious when he received another quest to offer the tower manager 500 magical cherry tomatoes. He tried to reason that they also needed to eat, and the tower manager had already taken hundreds of magical cherry tomatoes. When the tower manager responded to Sejun's complaints mentioning that it was not the tower manager's problem and to stop protesting, Sejun had had enough since he had worked and suffered for days, and was treated with little importance. Sejun refused the offer and did not want to give any more magical cherry tomatoes. The tower manager was flustered with Sejun's response. While Sejun continued with his work, the tower manager kept asking if he really refused to do the quest and reminded him that he would die if he refused. Sejun repeated what he had said. He did not want to give the crops he had grown to someone who had only told him that all he had done was sow the seeds. The tower manager was confused as to why Sejun was mad since the tower farmer was supposed to sow the seeds, and then continued to force Sejun by using his title as the tower manager. Sejun explained to the tower manager why he refused to give up the crops. He stated that he had been forcefully made to do the quests, and that the tower manager did not appreciate all the efforts he had made. The tower manager had also compensated Sejun so little and stated that as the tower manager he was a bad employer to have. The tower manager was struck by those words and was about to apologize for his treatment when he saw Sejun eating the magical cherry tomatoes. The tower manager was furious because of Sejun's actions and threatened him, stating that if he did not do the quest, the tower manager would surely kill him. As a compromise, Sejun offered 5 magical cherry tomatoes, and the rest would be given later since he needed to feed the other kids as well. The tower manager accepted the offer for just one time. After ending their conversation, Sejun noticed that the tower manager was trying to apologize, and that it was much simpler than he had thought. On his 91st day after getting lost, the 4th blue moon appeared. Sejun was still covering himself with the green onion blanket, but this time he was eating the magical cherry tomatoes. He had heard that people with high MP could withstand the roar of a monster to a certain level, which is why Sejun was eating the magical cherry tomatoes. Sejun only hoped that what had happened last time would never happen again, and that today's blue moon would end faster. While observing the crops, he noticed that they were being imbued with the blue moon's essence. When Sejun saw the cherry tomatoes turning blue, he couldn't wait to harvest the magical cherry tomatoes. He then noticed that the blue moon was not just giving its essence to the cherry tomatoes, but this time it also included the sweet potato leaves. Sejun was curious and wanted to observe what was happening. After digging through the sweet potato leaves, Sejun was ecstatic to find out that the sweet potatoes underground were also imbued with the blue moon's essence and had turned blue as well. Sejun received multiple notifications, informing him that after he had harvested the sweet potatoes with the energy of the blue moon, his job experience points and the skill harvest proficiency had increased and ended up maxing the skill out. Sejun also obtained 50 experience points from the harvest. After harvesting the magical cherry tomatoes with the blue moon essence inside, Sejun felt as if he had the world in both of his arms. His mood suddenly changed as his expectations came true. He received an additional quest. He was asked to offer the sweet potato and magical cherry tomato that were imbued with the blue moon's essence to the tower manager. Sejun was surprised to receive 2 additional quests at the same time, and realized that the tower manager might be serious now and would seriously kill him if he still refused. Sejun finished his last quest and offered the remaining magical cherry tomatoes to the tower manager. The tower manager accepted the offer and was delighted, but sensed something and asked what Sejun was doing. Sejun took back what he had said about the tower manager being simple and told him that he would give the sweet potato later. The tower manager contemplated a bit, but ended up trusting Sejun's words and made him promise to give the sweet potatoes later. Sejun was unsure at first what he should do with the sweet potato and cherry tomato he was holding, but he ended up eating the magical cherry tomato and felt ecstatic after tasting the flavor and how fresh the tomato was. After consuming the magical cherry tomato with the blue moon essence, Sejun increased his MP by 0.05. Sejun couldn't contain himself for much longer and cooked the sweet potato. He was disappointed that he did not have tinfoil to cook the sweet potato, but still glad that he had the all-purpose onion leaves. Morning came and the rabbit family came out of their home. They were curious about what Sejun was doing. They were surprised when Sejun offered them a cooked sweet potato with the energy of the blue moon. They were salivating while staring at the sweet potato. But the rabbit husband stopped them and wanted Sejun to have the food since there was only one. Sejun felt appreciated but was actually hiding the fact that he had already eaten secretly alone earlier and planned to never tell the rabbit husband about it. When Sejun took a bite out of the sweet potato, he immediately spit it out since it was extremely hot. The fallen pieces fell to the ground and were immediately taken by the baby rabbits. After putting it in their mouths, they also spat it out due to the hotness of the sweet potato. In Sejun's diary of getting lost in the tower, he ate a fiery hot meal. Sejun announced that going forward, they would start planting sweet potato sprouts. He specifically called out the baby rabbits and prohibited them from eating the sprouts for the time being. The baby rabbits were in despair since the sweet potato sprouts were their favorite snacks. Sejun told the baby rabbits that there was no point in complaining. He thought that there wouldn't be any sprouts left since they had been eating all day. Sejun told the baby rabbits that they would have a tastier sweet potato for dinner. But if they helped Sejun plant the sweet potato sprouts before dinner, he would give them some special snacks. Sejun decided to expand the area so that he could plant more sweet potato sprouts. The baby rabbits were salivating at the thought of receiving a special snack and immediately helped out in planting the sweet potato sprouts. Sejun instructed the wife rabbit to leave one green onion so that he could obtain the seeds by blooming the green onion flower. Looking at the green onion, Sejun thought that he needed to plant the seeds first so that they could grow. The baby rabbits were so diligent helping out in planting the sweet potato sprouts while the husband rabbit watered the planted sprouts. One baby rabbit was caught by the husband rabbit trying to sneak a bite of the sweet potato sprout, but was immediately scolded with a hard hit on the head. While Sejun was harvesting the magical cherry tomatoes, he received multiple notifications informing him that his skill proficiency and job experience points had slightly increased. He also obtained 10 experience points and leveled up. Sejun had reached level 8 and at the current speed he could already harvest them. He prepared some snacks for everyone. The tower manager was interestingly keeping an eye on what Sejun was going to cook but was noticed by Sejun. He called out to the others so that they could have their snacks. Sejun's snack was the special roasted cherry tomato bone skewers, which everyone received with delight. He reminded the rabbits to blow on the food first before taking a bite since it was very hot. Sejun noticed that enough sweet potato sprouts had already been planted, and dug up some sweet potatoes for their dinner. Sejun was able to obtain an item called a strength sweet potato with his first harvest. After harvesting the other sweet potatoes, Sejun was able to harvest 5 sweet potatoes from each plant. After the harvest, Sejun planted the sweet potato sprouts himself and was surprised when his skill proficiency increased. He was frightened when he realized that in order to increase his skill level, Sejun would have to plant the sweet potato sprouts himself and immediately asked everyone to stop working as he would do all the work from then on. Inside the tower manager was trying to replicate the cherry tomato skewers Sejun made but was met with disappointment since he could not replicate the taste. The tower manager was able to achieve at least the sweet taste inside the tomato. But soon after, the tower manager became curious about what Sejun was currently doing. The tower manager was furious when he saw Sejun and the others roasting a sweet potato without her. It was then revealed the real identity of the tower manager, the great black dragon, Aileen Fritani. While enjoying their food, Sejun received an additional quest to give 1 roasted strength sweet potato to the tower manager. After reading the quest, Sejun initially postponed it, but the tower manager was too eager for the sweet potato and threatened Sejun. Sejun explained to the tower manager that there was only 1 left, but if he were to give her the sweet potato, he asked what the tower manager could give him. The tower manager revised the quest offered and rewarded Sejun with a job-related skill if he were to accept it. Sejun hesitated at first but eventually offered the remaining roasted sweet potato. After completing the quest, Sejun acquired the skill Seed Store. When the skill is activated, a product can be purchased at the seed shop once every 30 days. Sejun was very happy with his new skill and now planned to purchase a different seed to plant on his farm. When he activated the Seed Store skill, he was confused at first when it mentioned that he had no previous transactions in the seed store. Sejun was curious about how he could purchase the seeds. Since he didn't have any money with him, Sejun wondered if he could barter some goods for them. He then received a notification, congratulating him for becoming the first rookie-tier customer of the seed store. Sejun was then provided with 1 tower coin to be deposited into his account at the seed bank. After thanking the seed store for their generosity, Sejun became curious about what he could purchase from the seed store. He was informed that he would be presented with 3 random seeds being sold for the day and he could only purchase 1 seed with his current level. Sejun contemplated hard on which seed he should choose. Since he couldn't make kimchi, the red pepper and cabbage were out of the option, leaving the carrot seed as his remaining choice. Just by the word carrot, the rabbit family became more excited. Sejun eventually received a kick to the face from the husband rabbit since he was teasing the rabbit family too much. After purchasing the carrot seed, Sejun also received seed store mileage, which could be used to help him level up. Upon receiving the seeds, Sejun sarcastically mentioned that the pocket looked more expensive than the seeds. Observing their movements, the tower manager was satisfied with Sejun's purchase, which made Sejun more suspicious of the tower manager. Everyone was very excited to plant the new seed they received. In the distance, a new monster was lurking among the plants. In Sejun's diary of getting lost in the tower, he received new carrot seeds from his first trade at the seed shop. After receiving the carrot seeds and planting them, Sejun noticed that the couple rabbits have been happy, even though the seeds have yet to sprout. He was curious if the rabbit couple really loved carrots a lot. Sejun plans to take a nap first before pollinating the flowers and cutting the onions in the afternoon. He was awoken from his sleep because a bug kept on disturbing him in his sleep. Seeing the bug for the first time, Sejun liked it since it was very cute. When he checked the bug's name, he immediately backed off since it was named Poison Honeybee. Sejun tried to warn the others about the poison honeybee but was surprised to know that they are already running away, leaving Sejun with the poison honey for himself. Sejun was warned by the tower manager that the poison honeybees are carnivorous monsters that sting and eat flesh. Avoiding them is the best course of action. Sejun was now more afraid to know that the honeybees eat flesh. He pleaded that he is not delicious and to spare him. As a last course of action, Sejun grabbed anything and tried to hit the poison honeybee with it. The poison honeybee was confused as to why Sejun is presenting him with flowers. But looking closer, the honeybee likes what is inside the flower. Opening his eyes, Sejun finally saw what the honeybee was doing. He then asked the tower manager about the information he shared of the honeybee being carnivorous, but now it is eating the flower. Sejun suddenly had an idea, and asked the poison honeybee if it was still hungry. It could eat the other flowers as well to his heart's content. This offer made the poison honeybee really happy. Laughing menacingly, Sejun's plan was to have the poison honeybee do the work so that he does not need to pollinate the cherry tomatoes anymore. The rabbit family was hiding behind a rock while being told by Sejun that he was mad since he was left by the rabbit family. After eating the other flowers, the poison honeybee came back, which made Sejun more cautious. The poison honeybee landed on Sejun's shirt and started sleeping. Sejun was flustered but still appreciated how cute the poison honeybee was, but was curious if it wouldn't sting him. Sejun's diary of getting lost in the tower, a new member has been added to the family. It is the 120th day after getting lost. Sejun and the others are still busy tending to their farm. Sejun became annoyed when the baby rabbits kept on playing near the farm while he was working. Even though Sejun was mad at them, he was still happy that the baby rabbits were still having a great time playing around. The poison honeybee then landed on Sejun's shoulder as it was finished sucking all the nectars of the plants. It had been several weeks since the poison honeybee came to the cave. She goes to work in the morning, sucks nectars, and returns to the forest outside the cave in the evening. Sejun was unsure if the poison honeybee is going back to her own group, but after a few days, she had started spitting out honey. Combining the freshly grilled green onion with honey, it became everyone's instant favorite. Sejun was freaked out at first because he thought poison honeybee was poisonous, but thanks to her, Sejun was able to quickly expand the field to get honey. In just a few months, Sejun will be able to eat so much honey to the point that he won't get jealous of the bears anymore. Sneaking behind him is the tower manager, who felt happy for him. Looking at the rock where he counted the days, he noticed that the blue moon was coming soon. This made Sejun become worried and hoped that it would go safely this time as well. On the 121st day after getting lost, Sejun had prepared and stocked all the necessities he needed for the blue moon. He also noticed that the poison honeybee no longer comes to the cave anymore, and assumed that she is preparing for the blue moon as well. Sejun noticed that the white rabbit family seemed more anxious today. Since it was almost time for the blue moon, Sejun called out the white rabbits to go home but was confused when they hugged one another. Both the husband and wife rabbit instantly ran away and said their goodbyes from the baby rabbits. This confused Sejun so much and was worried for the safety of the baby rabbits. But when the blue moon came, Sejun was somehow frightened. When he turned, the baby rabbits had become scary monsters with sharp teeth. Sejun was scared by what was happening to the baby rabbits. They had sharp teeth and scary eyes showing on their faces, but after a few moments they emitted a bright light that turned them into fluffy adult rabbits. Sejun was surprised by the sudden change but still happy that the baby rabbits had become adults. Sejun was curious because one of the adult rabbits had a different color from the rest. The others looked like their parents, but one rabbit turned black. It had been the 5th blue moon since the rabbits were born. Sejun thought their transformation was like a coming-of-age ceremony, and the rabbits seemed to agree. Sejun acted sad and told the rabbits that something was wrong with them during the transformation. As punishment, Sejun playfully grabbed each rabbit and gave them kisses. When the blue moon had passed and a new day came to the cave, the husband and wife rabbit came out of their home and happily greeted their now adult kids. Sejun thought about preparing a special feast for the adult rabbits, but was surprised when one of them summoned a shovel. Each rabbit summoned a different tool: a cart, sickle, and water can. Sejun guessed that when a farmer rabbit becomes an adult, they get their own tool. He noticed that the black rabbit hadn't summoned a tool yet, so he asked the rabbit about it. With a proud look, the black rabbit summoned a hammer. Sejun was curious because a hammer is not a farming tool. When he checked the black rabbit's name, he found out that it wasn't a farmer rabbit but a warrior rabbit. The day returned to normal, but this time there was more help with harvesting and planting. They were able to harvest and move more magical cherry tomatoes because of the cart. Sejun was happy that the white rabbits were now working with their parents on the farm. He remembered how they used to run around on the farm, but then he wondered what the black rabbit's purpose really was, as it seemed unemployed. Sejun thought about what the black rabbit could do with its hammer. Since it's a warrior, its job would be to fight, but there wouldn't be any fighting happening inside the cave. The black rabbit had an idea and pointed to a pond. Sejun realized that the black rabbit could hunt fish. Hunting is a kind of fighting, and this time the black rabbit could be helpful. Sejun planned to lure the fish with a torch and the black rabbit would catch them, which the black rabbit agreed to. Sejun went near the pond and moved the torch around to attract the fish. Then he signaled the black rabbit to catch the fish. But when the black rabbit used its hammer, its strike was so strong that it destroyed the fish. Sejun was surprised by the black rabbit's power but felt sad about what happened to the fish. The rabbit family was unhappy because the meal no longer looked like a fish. Sejun tried to cheer up the black rabbit and said it would get better with practice. He told everyone not to be sad and to enjoy the meal. Just like that, the rabbits started getting used to their roles. After 125 days, the seed store reopened. Sejun was happy and excited about which seeds to buy next, but he was surprised to see that the prices of the listed seeds were different from before. Sejun had a small amount of tower coins. With his current balance, he could only afford to buy waxy corn seeds. He was worried that if the prices kept going up, he wouldn't be able to buy anything next time. Moreover, Sejun didn't have a way to earn more money inside the cave. The first method was getting rewards after clearing a floor. Although the amount was high, the prize was given only once on each floor. So, the actual profits earned by hunters weren't that big. The second method was hunting monsters and selling their bodies to the wandering merchant or the store on the first floor. It was the best source of income for hunters because it could generate continuous profits. The third method was completing quests and getting rewarded. Sejun thought about it, but since the quest rewards varied widely, it was hard to decide among those three options. Clearing a floor was impossible for Sejun. He couldn't even escape from the cave. The other option was the heist-level quest given by the tower manager. Sejun called the tower manager and asked if completing quests could earn him tower coins as a reward. The tower manager said she didn't know what Sejun meant but would give him the coins later when he was grown up. Sejun was surprised that the tower manager didn't know about tower coins. He then asked how many more years he needed to grow up, and was shocked to find out that he had to be at least 300 years old. Sejun was angry and tried to explain to the tower manager that he wouldn't be able to use the tower coins. Instead, he planned to record them and pass them down to future generations, so eventually his grandchildren would receive them. But he wasn't even in a situation where he could have descendants. Sejun tried to calm himself because he knew he would lose if he got angry. He focused on what he could do to survive for now. He reasoned that corn was still a good choice since he could cook it in various ways and make flour out of it. In the end, he bought 200 waxy corn seeds. After receiving the seeds, they were all excited to work and plant them. But since they hadn't eaten yet, they planned to eat first and then start working. After some time, Sejun and the others were full after eating grilled fish and planned to save the rest for later. Sejun welcomed the poison honeybee and told it that it had been spending a lot of time in the cave lately. He asked if it would be okay if it didn't return home. Sejun would still be happy if the poison honeybee didn't return home and would gladly accept it in their small home. The honeybee sensed movement above the cave, which made Sejun think it might be a dangerous monster. The mysterious being introduced itself as an orange cat and assured Sejun that it wasn't a shameless cat that would steal their food. The cat, named Theo, was actually a wandering merchant. Sejun's diary of getting lost in the tower. He met a wandering merchant cat named Theo. Sejun was surprised to know that a wandering merchant was looking for him. Rumor has it that sometimes when people go up the tower, they'd meet a wandering merchant, but Sejun did not expect to meet a wandering merchant cat. When Sejun saw the cat's shiny eyes, chubby and soft cheeks, and jelly paws, Sejun instantly fell in love since Sejun really likes cats. Sejun confirmed to the merchant his identity and asked why the merchant cat was looking for him. Theo heard a new rookie made transactions in the seed store. Theo came to the cave to greet Sejun and make some deals with him. As he was about to show the items he wanted to offer to Sejun, Theo's stomach growled. He apologized to Sejun and explained that he has not eaten anything yet and ended up showing an embarrassing image in front of Sejun. Sejun had a menacing look after hearing Theo's explanation. He then offered Theo a roasted fish since he was starving. Theo was tempted and declined the offer at first, but Sejun insisted for Theo to have a bit of the roasted fish, even describing its taste and smell to it. Theo could no longer resist as the roasted fish was already near his face. After a few moments, Theo was already laying on the ground since he was already full. Sejun was surprised at Theo since he was able to consume 5 roasted fish and realized that Theo was really that hungry. Theo and Sejun were both thankful for one another, for the meal and for meeting each other. Theo was about to show Sejun the items he brought to make deals, but he was cut off by Sejun telling him that Theo must pay for the roasted fish that he just ate, which was about 0.5 tower coins. Theo was surprised and thought that the food offered by Sejun was for free. Sejun responded that there are no such things as free inside the tower and reminded Theo that he came to make a deal with Sejun. Sejun pointed out that as a wandering merchant, Theo was not planning to eat the customer's fish and ran away. Theo felt scared as he was cornered by the adult rabbits, and Sejun finally gave in and paid Sejun for the roasted fish he ate. Sejun was happy that he was finally able to get a tower coin, while Theo, on the other hand, had become depressed. Theo planned to take Sejun's money, but instead, he is the one who is giving his money away. His business started at a loss, but Theo did not give up and told himself that he would definitely sell all of his things to Sejun. With tears in his eyes, Theo asked Sejun to look at the items he brought as it was his turn. With a proud look, Theo showed the items he brought that consists of a tumbler, mini fan, and a portable hand warmer. All items cost 5 tower coins each. Sejun asked if the items came outside of the tower since he knew the items very well. Theo further explained the items individually and how it works. He explained that the tumbler had a preservation magic that if one puts a hot or cold stuff inside, it will maintain the temperature. The mini fan Theo brought has a wind magic enchantment. Whenever they need it, they can simply press the switch to turn on. In the middle of explaining how the items work, Theo was cut off by Sejun. He told Theo that the items he brought are all trash. The statement infuriated Theo. Furious at Sejun's words, Theo asked Sejun what he was talking about and accused him of not seeing the items' values as they are from outside of the tower. Theo was surprised when Sejun responded to Theo's question, informing him that Sejun came outside of the tower. Sejun then explained to Theo what he meant, how the items he brought are trash. There was no magic inside the items. The tumbler prevents heat transfer by blocking contact from the outside. For the mini fan and portable hand warmer, after turning it on for a few hours it will stop working because the batteries would run out. Theo refused to believe Sejun's words, telling him that Scarum definitely told him that there was magic inside the items, but was immediately met with the horrible reality when the mini fan stopped working due to the batteries being drained completely. Theo tried hitting the mini fan for it to work, but to no avail. Sejun told Theo that he may have been scammed by Scarum, the one that sold Theo useless things. Theo was depressed since he believed Scarum because he was kind to him. Theo bursted crying as he finally accepted the fact that he was scammed by Scarum. Sejun, on the other hand, was surprised that Theo's tone changed. Now Theo is adding Nia at the end of his sentence. Feeling bad, Sejun asked Theo what happened. Theo told his story. He is from the 75th floor, which is one of the tower's neutral zones. For a long time, Theo admired Meryl, the most beautiful girl in the Granar village. Theo confessed to Meryl and asked her to date him, but was only met with disgust when Meryl slapped the bouquet of fish Theo brought and told him that she did not like the smell of cheap rice fish. A voice told Theo that he should know his place. It was Oren, the son of the richest cat in the village. Oren told Theo that he should not give a low-grade rice fish to a lady and instead bring at least a high-quality salmon as a gift. Thinking that Meryl would slap the gift as well as he knows that she hates greasy food, Theo is surprised to see that Meryl liked the salmon Oren bought for her. Meryl was about to go with Oren when Theo held his hand and asked if the memories they shared together were just nothing for her. Meryl told Theo angrily that he was delusional. She only smiled a few times, but Theo ended up following him around even after telling him that she was not interested in him. Theo was so sad that he ended up leaving the village and decided to run away, becoming a wandering merchant. He was determined to become rich and get his revenge. Theo brought the necessary license and equipment to become a wandering merchant using his lifelong savings worth 50 tower coins. He was going to buy something from the peddler with the remaining 5 tower coins to resell them, but was tricked by Scarum telling him that the items he is selling is being collected by the creatures on the upper floor as a hobby. When Theo finally agreed to take the deal, Scarum gave him a map for a bonus. He was informed by Scarum that the map had the location of the new user of the seed store, and he could make a great profit on the new member if he was lucky. Sejun realized after hearing Theo's story that he is a total pushover, but immediately thought of an idea. Sejun tried to calm Theo down and offered him another roasted fish and promised him that he would not be charged. Sejun would even consider the meals he had before as a treat. In exchange, he sked if Theo could work with them. Sejun's diary of getting lost in the tower, Sejun found a partner. Theo was surprised when Sejun suggested they work together. He explained that he needed a good merchant to sell his items. Theo felt sad, thinking he might not be reliable because he was new and inexperienced as a wandering merchant. Sejun reassured Theo that he was suitable for the job because he had the talent for it. Sejun understood that Theo had made a small mistake with his previous business partner. Theo became curious about what a business partner is, so Sejun created a calm environment and explained what had happened in Theo's previous partnership. Sejun proposed a business plan that would benefit both of them. He further explained that Theo's task would be to take Sejun's items and sell them to others, and in return Sejun would give Theo a share of the sales revenue. Curious about the incentive, Theo asked Sejun. Sejun responded that Theo had to sell the items at prices higher than the ones set by Sejun. Theo had the ability to do so. For every item Theo managed to sell, he would receive 5% of the selling price. Theo felt scared and doubtful because he would only receive a small percentage from the sales. He thought the conditions were unfavorable for him. While drinking, Theo didn't plan on being deceived again. Sejun informed Theo that the most important thing in their partnership was that it wasn't limited to just the incentive. Sejun would also pay Theo with 10 grilled fish or equivalent coins every week. Theo couldn't help but salivate at the pile of grilled fish being offered, but he was still hesitant to sign the contract because he was afraid of being deceived once more. However, Theo couldn't resist and tried to negotiate with Sejun, asking for 20 grilled fish instead. Sejun smiled knowingly because he knew Theo had taken the bait. To seal the deal, Sejun offered 5 more grilled fish. Theo was now completely captivated by the stack of grilled fish in front of him. Sejun added to their agreement that besides the weekly payment, Theo could eat as much grilled fish as he wanted when he was in the cave. Theo completely forgot about the percentage he would receive from selling the items and was solely focused on the abundance of grilled fish he could enjoy. Sejun asked for a piece of paper and wrote down the business contract. After completing the contract, Theo was shocked to realize that he had signed it because he was so excited. The paper with the contract disappeared and reappeared as a notification for Sejun. He had heard that a contract was one of the most important documents inside the tower and couldn't be destroyed. He wondered why the system made it difficult to erase or tamper with, but now he understood. It was to make the contract effective and valid. Seeing the same notification about the contract, Theo was curious about the 4th clause of the special conditions. It stated that Theo must use the dialect from Granar, adding the word nya after every sentence. Theo felt embarrassed speaking the dialect, but Sejun reassured him that he would understand when the time came. Theo still had doubts about whether the plan would succeed. The contract also stated that if he couldn't sell the items well, he could terminate the contract. Sejun reassured Theo and gave him the title of Salescat Theo, the Resourceful. Theo instantly fell in love with his new title, which actually favored Sejun as it would make it easier for Sejun to manipulate Theo. Curious about what Theo would be selling, Sejun presented him with cherry tomatoes. Theo was doubtful about the item and asked Sejun how much he planned to sell them for. When Sejun mentioned the price, Theo was shocked and wondered who would buy cherry tomatoes at such a high price. Theo realized that selling the cherry tomatoes at such a price would lead to failure and termination of the contract. He asked Sejun how many cherry tomatoes he should bring for his first sale. Sejun responded that he should bring 1,000 of them. Sejun had also prepared 25 grilled fish as Theo's weekly payment. However, Sejun was curious about how Theo would carry all the cherry tomatoes. Theo replied that he would use his item called the Bundle, which had preservation magic, expansion magic, and made the tomatoes lightweight. Theo could store many things inside the bundle, and they would remain fresh for a long time. Sejun was amazed at how convenient the item was. After packing all the cherry tomatoes, Theo set off for work. A few days later, on the 38th floor of the tower, a group of warriors was hunting down a large monster. The team worked efficiently and managed to decapitate the monster. The group cheered for Kim Dong-shik, the leader of the Phoenix Guild. After conversing with the others, Dong-shik heard a rustle behind him, and was surprised to see Theo asking if they wanted to see the items he was selling. People gathered around because they had never seen a wandering merchant who was a cat before. The others loved Theo's accent, which made him realize what Sejun had meant earlier. When Theo presented the cherry tomatoes, people immediately lost interest and hoped that Theo would sell something like bread instead. Sarcastically, Theo laughed and told them to look at the stats of the cherry tomatoes. When the warriors saw the stats, they were still unimpressed. However, their attitude changed when they learned that eating the cherry tomatoes would help them lose 10 g of fat. They started discussing among themselves and all wanted to buy large quantities of the cherry tomatoes. While picking cherry tomatoes on his farm, Sejun wondered how Theo was doing as he should have already contacted the hunters. Sejun believed that his items were unique with no negative side effects and delicious. He knew they would sell very well. Meanwhile, Theo couldn't believe that all the items he had brought had sold out. Sejun kept on observing the crops as it was already at 70%. The 1,000 carrot seeds that Sejun purchased and planted from the seed store, only 700 have sprouted. The 1,200 magic cherry tomato seeds Sejun planted after harvesting them from the plants, only 732 have sprouted and are growing. The germination rate of the corn and sweet potato seeds Sejun bought from the seed store and personally planted is already at 60 to 70%. The germination rate of the carrots and cherry tomatoes are also similar. Sejun hoped that the crops would sprout more. He assumed that the reason why Sejun's crops do not sprout that much is because of his farmer level, or that the land is not fertile because it is inside the cave. Now that they have Theo to earn the tower coins, Sejun is more motivated to harvest as many crops as possible. Sejun and the wife rabbit noticed fire play portrayed by the black rabbit to lure out the fishes. After throwing the torch up above, multiple fish leaped towards it, allowing for Black Rabbit to swiftly strike all of the fish in one go. Sejun was amazed with Black Rabbit's skills. He also noticed that black rabbits have gotten pretty good at hunting too. The black rabbit all of a sudden emits a light around him, which makes him level up. He was so happy for the black rabbit as he had only witnessed the other white rabbits leveling up. The black rabbit felt proud and was given a round of applause by the white rabbits. After hunting down the fish in the pond, Sejun suggested for them to take a break and drink some coffee. He then opened the tumbler that contained coffee sticks. He was so glad about Theo being scammed by Scarum, as they did not open the tumbler and not reveal the contents inside it. If Theo tried to sell the coffee to Sejun, he would have spent all of his money just to buy the coffee. Sejun thanked them for their ignorance because he is now able to obtain good quality stuff for free. Even though Sejun did not have any tools to boil water, let alone ice cubes to make iced Americano, being able to make a coffee inside the cave is luxury for Sejun already. With the help of poison honeybee's honey, Sejun was able to create honey Americano, a combination of coffee powder dissolved in the cool cave's water mixed with honey. With one slurp of the drink, it can relieve fatigue and hunger at the same time. Sejun offered the drink to the adult rabbits but was displeased with the taste. While relaxing, Sejun noticed the poison honeybee headed towards a beehive. He realized that poison honeybee has moved in with Sejun and the others. All of a sudden, a new quest showed up in front of Sejun, asking for 10 magic cherry tomatoes. Sejun assumed that the tower manager realized of Sejun's importance after making a deal with Theo, and kept on postponing the quests. After offering the magic cherry tomatoes, Sejun felt satisfied at first after receiving a compliment from the tower manager, but immediately realized that he acted like a pushover in an instant. In the merchant guild, Scarum and the other goblins are conversing with one another. Scarum was irritated since Theo has not returned yet. After deceiving Theo by spending all of his money to buy useless items from Scarum, the goblin asked if Scarum was worried, but it was the opposite as Scarum had another plan for Theo. Scarum plans to inform Theo of a big opportunity and then lend him money to accomplish it. This would lead to Theo working hard to repay the loan he would borrow and making him Scarum's slave until death. The other goblins were amazed with Scarum's devious plan. As Scarum felt thirsty, he checked his current merchant rankings. He was pleased that he was in the top 1,000, but when he checked the merchants above him, he was surprised. At rank 982, Theo was in place, which infuriated Scarum. Meanwhile, Theo had finally returned after selling the magical cherry tomatoes. He apologized to Sejun for taking time before meeting him as he played for 4 days. After hearing his confession, Sejun realized that as soon as Theo reached the floor, the items immediately sold out. With a sinister smile, Sejun threatened Theo that if he did not give him the details of the transaction, he would likely face Sejun's scary side. After a few moments, Theo finished informing Sejun of the events of Theo's journey and gave the money earned from the cherry tomatoes. Sejun demoted Theo because of his actions, and his title would be reinstated if Theo works hard and will raise the incentive to 5%. Theo decided to use their dialect always since it attracts customers. This decision made Sejun very happy since everyone would finally know his name. Theo was curious what Sejun meant, which Sejun explained that in each item they sell, the farmer's name is displayed and will let people know that he cultivated the tomatoes. Theo became frightened as he realized one grave mistake. There's a system for a beginner wandering merchant that forcibly hides the origin of their goods. The policy is meant to prevent wealthy wandering merchants from stealing the suppliers of beginner merchants. Since Theo is still a beginner, which means that Sejun's name is covered in the items. Theo plans to never tell the secret to Sejun because he is scared of being demoted another time. He then asked for more magic cherry tomatoes so that he could sell more. But what Theo really wanted is that he wishes for his level to increase, so the restriction will be removed, and the cultivator's name will be revealed. Sejun became curious of Theo's action, and assumed that he believed all of Sejun's words. Outside the tower, the hunters from the Phoenix Guild were having a pleasant conversation, taking their time. Dongshik, the guild leader, received a message from his daughter asking him to buy more magical cherry tomatoes because they were effective. After reading the message, Dongshik cried, and a guild member asked what was wrong. Dongshik explained that his daughter, who was always annoyed because of her diet, was now happy because she was losing weight. Dongshik regretted only buying 20 pieces of magical cherry tomatoes. He didn't know his daughter would love them so much. so he left the rest for his team. Others were curious why girls were so obsessed with the cherry tomatoes. One guild member gave some cherry tomatoes to a girl he had a romantic involvement with, and now they are dating. People were obsessed with the cherry tomatoes and would buy them in any quantity. Dongshik stopped his team from arguing and called the rest of the guild to join them, as they were about to proceed to the 38th floor. Coincidentally, the female members of the guild arrived and informed their leader that they were prepared to buy the magical cherry tomatoes. They phrased it as getting ready for an expedition. The women were physically prepared to deal with monsters, but their real intention was to buy more magical cherry tomatoes. They all agreed to the plan and headed to the 38th floor. Dongshik, like everyone else, also wanted to obtain more magical cherry tomatoes for his daughter no matter what. Theo was still on his task but wondered when he would reach 1,000 tower coins. His magic item could only store up to 1,500 pieces, so if Theo continued to sell at the current rate, he would have to go back and forth more than 10 times. Theo reminded himself to focus on selling first as it was his priority. He was now looking for places where humans gathered. After some time, the hunters finally found Theo, which made him curious. Theo asked if the hunters were looking for him and they agreed, explaining they had waited for 3 days because they didn't know when he would appear again. As the hunters were about to buy the cherry tomatoes Theo was carrying, he stopped them and informed them that the price had gone up. Dongshik asked what the commotion was about, and a guild member explained that the prices had risen to 0.07 tower coins. Theo hesitated at first, thinking he had raised the price too much, but he was surprised to find out that people were still trying to buy the magical cherry tomatoes in large quantities. The product sold out immediately. Dongshik asked when Theo would be back for more tomatoes, and Theo replied that they should wait at that exact place as he would return in 10 days. Dongshik agreed to the condition as it was perfect for regrouping after a quest, and he hoped to purchase more magical cherry tomatoes soon. He then called out to the guild members, informing them to finish their business quickly as they would be heading to the spider monster's lair. Theo was happy to have found regular customers, which would help him achieve his goals sooner. A female hunter called out to him saying he looked similar to the cat they knew. The female hunter introduced herself as Suha, and Theo corrected her, saying he was the only handsome cat there was. As Theo was about to leave, Suha offered him a treat. Theo tasted the food and immediately ate the whole thing. Suha offered more treats with different flavors, and when Theo asked if there were still more, Suha made an offer. She would give him more treats if he took a photo with them, which he easily accepted. Suha was satisfied with the photo she took with Theo, and planned to come back and meet him again soon. Meanwhile, inside the cave, Sejun was in the middle of giving Black Rabbit special swimming training. For safety reasons, Sejun temporarily blocked the hole where the fish came from. Even though he had checked on it a few times, he was still nervous. Sejun instructed Black Rabbit to swim without using the green onion. He had already seen great progress from Black Rabbit compared to when the rabbit almost drowned after becoming excited and jumping into the water. Sejun was tired and wanted to eat a sweet snack after playing in the water. He was surprised to see that he had already finished the bottle of sweet honey. He then realized that he hadn't seen the poisoned honeybee for some time and wondered if something had happened. While staring at the beehive, Sejun noticed that there was an increase in baby poison bees. To congratulate the poisoned honeybee, Sejun brought flowers as a gift, but the baby poison bees reacted with hostility. As they were about to be attacked, Sejun instructed Black Rabbit not to fight the baby poison bees as they were not enemies. The attack from the baby bees stopped when the poisoned honeybee emerged from the beehive, which surprised Sejun as she looked completely different and was now called the Queen Poisonous Honeybee. Sejun doubted if he was facing the same honeybee he knew. The poison bee is a meat-eating creature that hunts with venom. Aileen Fritani found this information from the books she had. She noticed the situation was under control and decided to leave it as it is for now. Sejun asked if the monster in front of him was really the cute poison honeybee he knew, and the queen bee confirmed. He was surprised by the sudden change. After she ate nectar from Sejun's cave, her body emitted a strong smell and she gained weight. This made the queen suspicious, but she soon understood why the queen's behavior had changed. The poison honeybee could now lay eggs, leading her to become independent. After meeting Sejun, the poison honeybee created a beehive inside the cave. Her appearance started to change and she became the Queen Poisonous Bee. The poisonous queen bee was delighted to receive the gift that Sejun bought for her. When their queen hugged Sejun, the baby bees followed her example and hugged him too. A few days later, Sejun was awakened by the Black Rabbit. He had expected to have a good sleep during the blue moon. Sejun saw the carrot with blue moon energy and realized that he had previously thought the carrot wouldn't change because it was still small. Sejun understood why the white rabbits had woken him up to harvest the carrot. After harvesting it, the carrot was called an agility carrot. which would increase his agility stats by 0.05. Sejun's skills and level increased after harvesting the carrot. He noticed a change in his experience points and realized better crops would yield more points. Sejun gave the agility carrot to the white rabbits and thanked them. The adult white rabbit impressively cut the carrot into multiple pieces in one move. Sejun praised the white rabbit's skill, making the black rabbit jealous. Sejun noticed that after the blue moon, 5 magic cherry tomatoes had turned blue, and he offered them to the tower manager for the quest. He then asked if he could receive another skill reward for completing the quest. He became curious when the tower manager responded that she would have to think about it and give it to him later. Sejun heard Theo's voice and was asked to tell the bees not to attack Theo. He remembered Theo wasn't present when the baby bees were born, so they might have seen him as an enemy. After Sejun saved Theo from the baby bees, Theo thanked him and called him brother. Sejun corrected him, stating that Theo was his employee while holding his face. Sejun praised Theo for bringing more tower coins and increased his incentive. But what Theo really wanted was to be Sales Cat Theo and not just an employee. Theo realized it was difficult to earn a new title after hearing Sejun's explanation. Sejun was grateful to the tower manager for the information and planned to give her a blue moon crop next time. Sejun asked Theo what he was eating, and Theo said churu, which he got from a human. Things entered the tower in 2 ways: vanishing, like how Sejun entered, or through awakened hunters bringing items. Hunters could bring 1 kilogram of items from outside but had no restrictions when leaving. Sejun wondered why someone would bring churu just to meet a cat and had a new business idea. Theo noticed Sejun's menacing look and asked if he wanted to eat the churu. Sejun took the churu away from Theo and informed him that he would confiscate it since Theo had made a deal to obtain the churu. Sejun explained the special conditions of the contract, which required Theo to only have clients approved by Sejun. This meant that Theo had breached the contract. Theo was horrified to learn about the special conditions, as it was the first time he had heard of them. Sejun calmed Theo down and told him not to be disappointed. Sejun then asked for the names of the clients Theo had mentioned before. Sejun informed Theo that for 1 hour he would be the sales cat, Theo. If he performed well in future trades, he could be sales cat Theo for multiple hours. Sejun pampered Theo by placing him between his legs, feeding him churu, and warming him by the bonfire. Theo was delighted with the treatment he was receiving and thought it must be part of being a sales cat. Sejun was about to serve the grilled fish that Theo had requested when he asked how Theo was able to reach the 38th floor without fighting any monsters. Theo explained that it was because of his wandering merchant license, for which he paid a hefty annual fee. The higher the level, the more money one needed to pay each year, but they would also receive benefits. With a wandering merchant license, one could use various association-protected facilities. Not being attacked by monsters was one of the perks of being a wandering merchant. When asked if he could bring hunters with him, Theo informed Sejun that while the wandering merchant would not be attacked due to the license, the hunters accompanying the merchant would be attacked. The wandering merchants used an exclusive shortcut called the Merchant Passageway, but it was only accessible to those with the wandering merchant license. Theo told Sejun that without the Merchant Passageway, it would be impossible to travel from the 38th floor to the cave in just 5 days. Sejun was then curious about the floor they were on, but was surprised when he was told that they were on the 99th floor of the tower. Sejun felt despair as the information he had assumed was wrong. He tried to make sense of the situation, but it remained unchanged, except for now knowing which floor they were on. Theo called out to Sejun and told him that his weekly pay had been reduced to ashes. Sejun prepared another batch of grilled fish while contemplating whether he should give up on leaving the tower. Considering it had only been a few weeks since the hunters started climbing the 40th floor, Theo tried to boss Sejun around, instructing him to grill the fish properly and not let it burn. But he was surprised when he was told that his hour of being a sales cat had finished. Sejun noticed the crest on Theo while he was still sad about no longer being a sales cat. Sejun imagined a group of hunters lost inside the tower with no potions or supplies. Suddenly, both Sejun and Theo appeared and informed the hunters that they were selling good items at a cheap price. The hunters immediately recognized Sejun and the mascot Theo, as they were known to appear in front of helpless hunters. They immediately asked to purchase the goods Sejun had brought and handed over all their money. Sejun stopped his imagination and asked Theo if it was possible for him to become a wandering merchant. Unfortunately for Sejun, Theo explained that only creatures born inside the tower could become wandering merchants. Sejun snapped completely as he no longer knew what to do and cursed out loud, catching the attention of everyone, including the tower manager. Sejun tried to calm himself down, realizing that shouting wouldn't help his situation. He thought that he should have prepared to endure the moment he decided to enter the tower. Sejun now planned to live his life to the fullest. Outside of the tower, the items that Sejun cultivated had become popular and were being discussed by 2 individuals. One of them was Jenny, the sister of a member of the Phoenix Guild and the CEO of Easter Pharmaceutical. The other individual was Michael McLaren, the vice president of Gagel Food Company. Both Jenny and Michael continued to discuss the effects of the magical cherry tomato and how it affected their businesses. While Michael was not convinced about the item, Jenny explained to him how vital the magical cherry tomato was. She showed him the data results they had obtained, which surprised Jenny since they were able to obtain it in a short period of time. After asking about her real intentions, Jenny asked Michael to give her the previously unsuccessful tower farming project, which caught Michael off guard. He asked how she knew about it. Jenny hinted to Michael that he should try to regain his father's trust, who was the current president of Gagel. Rumors were circulating that the board director would elect the next chairman on behalf of the sick current chairman. Jenny asked Michael to reconsider and offered the magical cherry tomato, to which Michael happily agreed this time. After eating the tomato, Michael complimented it and laughed hysterically. He then asked for more as he found it really appetizing. Please read the pinned comment down below about the next part.